Singapore has no natural resources. It imports almost all of its food and water. It's smaller than New York City, and until 1965, most people didn't expect it to survive as an independent country at all. And yet, today it's one of the richest countries per person on Earth, home to one of the busiest ports on the planet, and a financial hub that global banks fight to have offices in. This is the story of how a tiny island with nothing going for it on paper became one of the most important economies in the world, and why the strict rules everyone jokes about might be exactly why it worked. Start with the founding crisis. In 1965, Singapore was expelled from the Federation of Malaysia, suddenly an independent country with no military to speak of, no natural resources, population with high unemployment, and no clear economic identity. Neighbors that were, at best, uncertain about its survival cover the leadership's core bet. Instead of trying to become self-sufficient, they doubled down on becoming essential to everyone else, a trade and finance hub positioned at the crossroads of major shipping lanes. Introduce land reclamation as a physical metaphor for the whole country's approach. Singapore has expanded its actual land mass by over 20% since independence, pumping in sand and reshaping its coastline because there simply wasn't enough land to work with otherwise. Explain the geography to infrastructure pipeline. Singapore sits directly on the shipping route between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, one of the busiest maritime corridors on Earth. Port of Singapore became one of the world's largest transshipment hubs. Goods from dozens of countries pass through without ever being made or consumed. This into deliberate policy choices, extremely low corporate tax rates, minimal bureaucratic friction, and a legal system reputed for being predictable and free of corruption cover why multinational companies chose Singapore as a regional headquarters over other Asian cities. Predictability and rule of law mattered more than lower costs elsewhere. Mention Changi Airport here as a second symbol of the same philosophy, consistently ranked among the best-run airports on Earth, reinforcing Singapore's brand as a place where things simply work. This is the section built for maximum curiosity and strong shorts material. Singapore's famously strict laws, fines for littering and jaywalking, the chewing gum sales ban since 1992, mandatory caning for certain offenses. Affirm these not as quirky trivia, but as part of a coherent strategy. Extreme order and predictability made the country attractive to foreign capital in a region where instability was common cover. The trade-off, honestly, this level of control comes from a political system that's been dominated by a single party for decades, with limited space for dissent. An important nuance, since efficient and free aren't always the same thing. Balance this by noting genuinely high approval and quality of life metrics among citizens. Even amid the trade-offs, housing policy, over 80% of Singaporeans live in government-built public housing HDB flats that are well-maintained and often owned, not rented, a strong contrast to how public housing is perceived elsewhere. A mandatory savings system (CPF) forces citizens to save for retirement, health care, and housing, controversial, but tied directly to the country's financial stability. Paradox wrap up. Bring it together. Singapore had nothing to extract, so it turned itself into infrastructure, a place other countries' money, goods, and companies needed to pass through. Strict rules weren't only about control, they were a competitive advantage in a region where predictability was rare. End on a reflective note. Singapore is proof that being indispensable to everyone can be its own form of power, even without anything to dig out of the ground. But it's also a reminder that economic success and political freedom don't always move together, and that's worth sitting with. Stunning night view of Marina Bay Sands, or the dramatic silhouette of port cranes against a vibrant sunset. In our next video, we are taking you to another incredible, fast-paced country that you won't want to miss. Which country do you think it is? Drop your guesses in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that like button And to make sure you never miss our deep dives into the world's most fascinating places, hit subscribe and join our journey right now. Until next time, see you in the next video. Asterisk.